Good evening, all. This is Chick. Welcome back to day 15 of the 77-day video challenge. We're going to pick up where we left off last night. If you recall, at the end of the story last night, I had gone up to the family day at rehab with my daughter, and we'd spent the day there. And then, it being Halloween, aptly, I drove my daughter home that night to go trick or treating and have as normal a night as possible. While I was home that night, I was scheduled to go to a Halloween party for a social club that I belong to. Well, thank goodness that rare commodity common sense took over and I canceled and didn't go. So the next morning, I get in my car and I drive back up to the rehab. And when we get there, we're informed that before the scheduled activities for the day start, we're going to actually get to spend some personal time with our loved ones for about 15 minutes before it starts. And they direct me to a bench on the grounds of the rehab and tell me, Jackie will be waiting for me there when I get there. So I go and I sit on the bench next to her and I reach out and I take her by the hands and I look her in the eyes and I said, Baby, we got to get you out of here. This place is terrible. And she looked at me and she said, What are you talking about? I said, Well, yesterday I came up here codependent. While I was here, I became an alcoholic, and on the way home, I became a drug addict. I'm getting worse. She kind of laughed at me, and we had a good little chuckle. Uh, I spent the day there. We went through all the planned activities of the day with a moderator in between our conversations. And we both learned a lot about how the other one person felt about everything that was going on in our lives. And that night, I left there and I drove home in a pretty good mood, not quite as confused as I was the first day we went up. And when I got home, I called my friend that I was telling you about last night that had 8 years already in recovery. And the next night, he took me to my first recovery meeting. This is what I'm going to tell you. If you recall, I said I'd spent my whole life trying to fit in and never quite belonging anywhere. Well, I know it doesn't happen this way for everybody. At that first recovery meeting, as I heard other people sharing all of my struggles as their own, for the first time in my life, I truly felt like I belonged, like everybody else in the room understood my struggles. But more importantly, not only did they understand them, they had overcome them. I had this picture of what a recovery meeting would be like, that it'd be a bunch of miserable people complaining about their lives. To the contrary, there was a lot of joviality, a lot of fun. People looked like they were happy, like they wanted to be where they were. And I was just shocked by the whole process. I continued to go to recovery meetings every day. I got what's called a sponsor, and I began to work through my recovery. Now, I didn't get to speak to Jackie again for the next 26 days because we were not allowed, she was not allowed to be on the phone or have outside contact with anybody the rest of the time she was there. And that first evening, she got home. I got home from work. She was already home. And I looked at her and I said, Baby, get dressed. We're going out. And she looked at me kind of askew. I said, Listen, it's going to be okay. Trust me. Well, I don't think she really did. But she got dressed and we went out. And she was totally taken by surprise when our date, the first night she was back, was to a recovery meeting, which turned out to be the recovery meeting that we belonged to for many, many years. This is what I'm going to tell you. Again, this was the beginning of my truly looking at my life, finding out who I was, and knowing that I belonged and I no longer had to fit in. My whole life has changed ever since then. And I have to tell you that I 100% agree with Socrates now that I've examined my life. So the unexamined life I lived before was not worth living. But the life I have today, every day, is worth living. Tomorrow we'll pick up with the story one day at a time.